Thank you, Kristen, for that meditation, and Ricky Byers for the beautiful song, bringing us into our message today. So, Shana Tova to all of our Jewish friends that are observing Rosh Hashanah today and the next several days. And of course, we send love and light to all those who are grieving the loss of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. A champion for justice and for civil rights, not only for women, although that's been significant for the LGBTQ plus community, for all people of color, for all Americans, and for our civil liberties. So if you don't know much about the significant difference that she's made in the world, please take some time to spend some time reading about her life. And for me personally, as a woman, she made a difference for me. Simple things from being able to have credit in my own name, having control over my personal health decisions, and many, many other things. So I give thanks for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I didn't realize I was going to get so emotional about that, but it's okay for us to be sad. It's okay for us to grieve. In fact, it's healthy and good for us to acknowledge the losses that we're experiencing. So let's just take a moment here to just move into that place of acknowledging our grief. Our faith is deep enough to be able to hold us in our grief. And so we get to be gentle and loving with ourselves, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to express this, and I'm grateful to be in community this morning to be able to express that together. And so this month we're focusing on facing fear and talking a lot about faith. So as a recap, in the first week I talked about what we have faith in, what we take refuge in from, and I used the example of the three refuges from the Buddhist teachings. Tara Brach says that when we take refuge, it awakens and cultivates that inner experience of safety and belonging. I think we could all use that right now, a sense of safety and belonging. And so in Buddhism, it's they're termed the Buddha, which is the awakened nature, which we would talk about as the divine truth of who we are, our awakened nature to the divine truth of who we are. The Dharma is the second one, which is the path or the way. And so I talked about our spiritual practices that we do. That's our path through our prayer, meditation, our circulation, our gratitude, our forgiveness work. All those things that we do is a part of the path of the way. And then, of course, the Sangha, which is spiritual community when we're gathering together. And so we can learn in these three areas how we can create support throughout our lifetime, not just in times of trial or challenge or fear, but it's where we take refuge in all areas of our life. And so last week, Charlene beautifully shared how our faith manifests good in our lives. Some beautiful personal examples of answered prayer and the power of community, coming together to pray with each other, which we do so well in our community. And I know over the past 30 years or more, as I've been practicing our teachings, I have experienced many, many, many answered prayers and seen countless demonstrations of healing through the power of our collective prayer. And it's a gift to be able to reach out to each other and to know that we are praying with and for each other. And yet, even with all the answered prayers, there are still times when it can feel that prayer isn't answered, right? For those who have prayed and, didn't get the job, or who didn't recover from the illness, or who suffered a loss, or who died. This is the ultimate fear, I think, the ultimate fear of impermanence that we sometimes, even in our prayer work, are trying to get around, trying to escape the sense of impermanence of change. And a book that I've been reading called The End of Fear, A Spiritual Path for Realists the author Richard Schaub says this. He says, our survival instinct is operating from a primal truth that life is wondrous and a strange experience in which everything and everyone you see, including yourself, is subject to change and loss at any moment. This is true for every living being without exception. This is Buddhism's truth of impermanence. This, what Freud called our helplessness, is the defining characteristic of the human condition, that we live with the awareness of our mortality. So we live with this awareness and often fear that we're going to die, we're going to lose something, we're going to change. And we can go there, right? Who hasn't gone down the road of catastrophizing from time to time? Just talk to any parent whose child is out on the road driving themselves for the first time, who forget to call the minute they arrive to their destination safely, or who might be waiting for test results. Our minds can go off in all kinds of places. We have great imaginations when it comes to projecting into our future. Mark Twain said one time, um, I've led a long and troubled life, most of which never happened to me. So we can probably relate to that sometimes, right? So and usually the child finally remembers to call or text, and oftentimes the test results come back negative. And yet there are times when our projections play out, right? In this moment that we're living in, with so many very real challenges, with huge possibilities of consequences, personally and collectively. I mean, we're living in this moment of pandemic, of racial unrest, of political unrest, of climate change. We're living in this unknown world where we can stay in this perpetual state of uncertainty, where the awareness of our fragility is heightened. Reverend Paul Tillich said, to be aware is to be anxious. And at this moment, it's a perpetual anxiety. It's a perpetual awareness. We've had our moments in our times of fragility where we were in those moments, but that we moved through them. 9/11 or the Bay of Pigs, or a climate catastrophe. There's these moments that we can sustain that sense of uncertainty, of fragility, of change, but at this moment, it's sustained, and it can take a toll. It takes a toll on our nervous systems and who we are, and it can keep that sense of vulnerability in the front and center. Roger Schraub says that while we share our vulnerable condition with all other living beings, our human capacity for self-awareness adds to its impact. As the poet Wendell Berry put it, we live with the forethought of grief. We can't be sure, but we may be the only creatures on earth who go about our lives knowing that one day we won't be here. Knowing one day that we won't be here. And yet, even though we know that intellectually, we spend lots of time, lots of energy denying it or turning away from it. We've created elaborate schemes trying to look eternally youthful, to perpetuating distractions to avoid how to face the reality of our own impermanence. And so there's this balancing act that we are aware of our impermanence, and yet we don't have. It's not good for us to stay in that awareness all the time. And yet, if we're not able to come to terms with that, then that creates the anxiety, that creates the fear. And so we have to face it. We have to face this fear. We have to accept impermanence and change, especially when it comes to our own impermanence, our own physical, egoic permanence. All of us will die. I remember one time I had that awareness that every person that Jesus ever healed eventually died, right? So even if you're healed by Jesus himself, there's a moment in time when this physical expression transforms into something else. Anne Morrow Lindbergh said, we have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We insist on permanency, on duration, on continuity, when the only continuity possible in life, as in love, is in growth, in fluidity. So this letting go of our attachment to thinking that it has to stay the same way is part of the the spiritual growth process that allows us to be in a moment of ease and and comfort and safety, even when there's all this stuff going around us. So, so we first have to acknowledge the fear that we have, this sense of survival in physical form. If we if we didn't have that fear, we wouldn't survive. We wouldn't survive. We wouldn't know to run or, you know, get out of danger or look both ways or whatever it is. So we have to acknowledge that that fear is part of our very survival system. And so we have to love ourselves even in our fear. Um, I'm reminded that when we got our dog, and she would bark, you know, when the doorbell rings, she'd bark and she'd bark, bark, bark. And we had a trainer come over and she said to us, you know, she's trying to alert you of a danger. She wants you to know that there's a danger. And so when she does that, thank her. Thank her for letting us know. And then let her know that you've heard, that it's okay. She's done her job. And now it's our job to take care of it. In some ways, that's what we have to do with our own fear when it comes up, when that dread comes up or that concern comes up. There's a part of us that just we have to give thanks for that. Oh, this is just a, a warning system. Richard Schwab says, so whenever any form of fear arises, turn toward it with affection. Thank it silently in your mind and watch what happens. This is a quiet, simple practice. It works quite subtly and it can change the way life feels. When your fear is treated skillfully in this way, the love of life rises naturally into your awareness. It has always been there, waiting for you to awaken more fully to it. And now you are giving it room. I love that idea to just to acknowledge our fear and lovingly turn towards it, to just acknowledge it. You know, Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, talked famously about being for something and against nothing. And there's all kinds of ways that we can interpret that. But one of the ways is that we're not pushing against. We don't push against our fear. We don't push against that which causes us challenges, but we can turn towards, we can acknowledge it, and we can transform it by that turning towards it. So when we do this, we bring ourselves present. We open ourselves to new possibilities. And it's only in that present moment where a new possibility can be found. Cheryl Salzberg says that at a time of great suffering, when there's nothing else to rely on and nowhere to go, the return to the moment is an act of faith. Openness is and to possibility can then arise. So it's a returning to that moment. That is the act of faith, to be okay within this present moment, to be okay with where we are in this moment and not try to push it away or turn against it. So, you know, some people talk about that we're either in fear or in faith, but I don't think that's actually true. It's not a choice between fear and faith. We actually always have faith. It's what we have faith in that is what we're talking about here. So when we're in a place of fear, it turns into not the healthy alert type that you acknowledge and move through, but becomes this perpetual state of worry or fear. It's what we're having faith in that moment is the small self, is the impermanent egoic self, that which will transcend, will no longer be, but we become our faith is in the um, the reality of that, the value of that, the experience of that in a way that keeps us from deepening into what we truly need to have faith in, which is our divine self, which is our oneness, that which never dies. You know, Ernest Holmes said, you know, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Faith is a mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. So faith is something that is within us that our fear and our worry and what our mind is saying can't touch it, can't deny it. Um, and so it's the working on what it is that we have faith in, and what we want to know that we have faith in is this changeless, ever present reality of the truth of who we are. It's that place of us that can never be harmed, that is always safe. Right this very moment, just go into that place where there's a place within us that knows that it is safe, regardless of the impermanent nature of the life around us or our physical body, that there is something that is um, guiding us and directing us and loving us. Richard Schwab says, this connecting love, this all encompassing and uplifting sense of oneness is your innate spiritual potential. It rises up because it was always there in the ground of your being, only held down by fear. So it's that fear, the belief in our permanence, the belief in our egoic need for egoic permanence or physical permanence. That's the fear that actually holds us down from experiencing the faith of the divine essence, the presence and the power that is within us at all times. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, it's a simple, quiet, undescribed, indescribable presence that is dwelling peacefully in us, that peaceful presence that dwells within us at all time. He goes on and he says, nothing divine dies. Nothing divine dies. The beauty of nature reforms itself in the mind, and not for barren contemplation, but for new creation. So this is the truth that we come forward with, this truth of this divine nature within us. And what the truth of that divine nature within us brings us forward is a sense of love. It's that oneness that is the energetic love that propels us forward into action for what we cannot save, what we do not love. Um, Evelyn Underhill, the great mystic, said, consciousness now finds and adores in the sky, in the nest, in the soul, in the void, one energetic love, this divine presence. And so we're at a choice point in our life, first to acknowledge the very real fears that we're having at this very moment, the fear of our impermanence, the fear maybe of our democracy's impermanence, of our our climate impermanence. Uh, all of those things are part of this fear that can cripple us, right? But it also can make us stand. It can make us act. So when we stand in this love and oneness, then we go forward for good in the world. It's what we love that matters. I love this quote by Thomas Berry. He says, an absence of a sense of the sacred is the basic flaw in many of our efforts at ecologically and environmentally adjusting our human presence to the natural world. It has been said, we will not save what we do not love. It is also true that we will neither love nor save what we do not experience as sacred. Eventually, only our sense of the sacred will save us. And this goes back to this idea of oneness, of interconnectedness, that not only does that divine presence reside in us, it resides in you and in life and within nature, and it connects us, and it's this energy, and it is all sacred. It is all sacred. So it's in this process of acknowledging our fear, of connecting to what we have faith in, that divine presence within, to realize that that divine presence isn't just within us, within all life, that then it propels us forward in action, propels us forward into what is ours to do in the world. I love this quote by Dr. Holmes, which he talks about this faith. He says, if we will have faith in ourselves, faith in our fellow humankind, in the universe, and in God, that faith will light the place in which we find ourselves. And by the light of this faith, we will be able to see that all is good. And that light shed by this faith will light the way for ourselves and for other. It is the very faith that drives us forward, that lights the way to what is ours to do, how it is that we go forward. And we go forward from that place in an experience of oneness and calmness and peace because we know the truth of who we are. That doesn't mean we don't act, but we come from that place of peace. I want to circle back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I want to read a post that I saw on social media. It's by a person named Molly Conway. You may have read it yourself, but I'm just going to read pieces of it. She says, "It is said that a person who passes on Rosh Hashanah is a tzaddik, a good and righteous person. When we speak of tzedakah, the word is often translated as charity, but it is more accurately to say righteousness. Tzedakah can take many forms, including monetary donations, but it's important to note that tzedakah is not a benevolent contribution given to be kind or nice to those who need. It is to be viewed as a balancing of the scales, an active working towards justice." When we say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a tzaddikat, which is the feminine form of tzaddik, we don't just mean she was a nice person. What we're saying is that she was a thoughtful person who worked tirelessly to create a more just world, one that would perpetuate equality and access, one that was better for people she did not know without the expectation of praise or fame. That is what it means to be a tzaddikat. And I can't think of anyone who better embodies the pursuit of justice. When we say, may her memory be for blessing, the blessing we speak of is not, may we remember her fondly, or may her memory be a blessing to us. The blessing implied is this: may you be like Ruth. May you be like Ruth. Jewish thought teaches us that when a person dies, it is up to those who bear her memory to keep her goodness alive. We do this by remembering her. We do this by speaking her name. We do this by carrying on her legacy. We do this by continuing the pursuit of justice, of righteousness, of sustainability. So when you hear us say, may her memory be for blessing, don't hear, it's nice to remember her. Hear, it's up to us to carry her legacy. When you hear us say she was a tzaddikat, don't hear she was a nice person. Hear she was a worker of justice. May her memory be for blessing. May her memory be for revolution. May we become a credit to her name. And with that, let us move in to some prayer time. And I'm going to check our chat to see what we have for prayers for. All right, so let's just take a nice deep breath in. And let us just go to that still small place within that is never harmed, that cannot be changed, that cannot be hurt. Let us recognize this divine presence that lives within us, and that we each are a part of that. I am that divine expression. I am one with that all-encompassing love essence that is the very light of the world that moves in and through me in this very moment. As I speak my word for and with each other, I know that we each are in a place of blessing and love. I know that as we move through the challenges that we are faced with individually, as a country, as a world, that there is something within us that keeps us whole and perfect and complete, that allows us to act from this place of wholeness, from this place of oneness. And as we honor our emotions and our feelings and our sadness, we know that they cannot overtake us, that they're just warning systems. And so we can give thanks for that warning. We can give thanks for that part of us that yearns to keep us alive, that yearns to keep us safe. And we can let that part let go as we acknowledge it, and let the true presence of the divine that really does keep it safe come forward into our life, come forward into our experience, come forward to an expression. So I know that we are all each doing our good work to stay in this place of divine love as we go forward and knowing what is ours to do. We pray for those who are grieving today. We lift up Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in appreciation and love. and respect and give thanks for the good that she has done in this world, and know that she is a blessing to us as we are a blessing, as we carry forward this blessing in the world. It shouldn't be up to just one person. It is all of our responsibility to take this vision forward, to do what is ours to do in the world. So I know that all is divinely guided with regard to our Supreme Court and the next Supreme Court justice to hold the vision of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to continue the work for civil rights, for the rights of all of us. I speak a word for Gloria and for Carl for their health and well-being. I know continued prayers for my beloved friend Mo as she is in a place of peace and love and wholeness and health, connecting into the divine presence of who she is. I see her surrounded by this love, lifted up by her community, by her beloved Bill, by all those who know her and love her, and that the highest and best is unfolding for Mo's continued divine expression, however that perfectly expresses as her. So let's just take a moment, and if you have a prayer within your heart, to speak it out, to know that in this sacred chamber of prayer that your thought, your word has power, has significance. Whatever that prayer is in your heart, to speak it now, either silently or out loud. And so it's with love and gratitude that I know that this word is powerful. And as I release it into the law, it cannot come back void. And so I wait with loving anticipation to see the unfoldment of good in our world, and I give thanks for it. And so it is.